Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, Londonderry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, will make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
Hello everyone and welcome back to the Gaelic Lives podcast. This is our semi-final review and we're looking back at the two games at Croke Park over the weekend, and we now know who's in the All-Ireland final. It's going to be Kerry against Donegal in 2 weeks' time, and I suppose we'll start with Saturday's game. Nell, we'll come to you first. You were in Croke Park for Kerry on Tyrone. A tough day out for Tyrone. Kerry just proved too good in the end.
Yeah, a bit disappointing. Kerry won by 6 points, but it could have been a fair bit more. Thrown at the final, I think 3 points, 3 or 4 points to the game, and then on top of that, Kerry squandered, 4 or 5 really good goal chances. At the same time, there's maybe a bit much to expect Tyrone to get to an All Ireland final this year. I think with the benefit of the hindsight, we'll talk about it a bit more later, but it was a season where progress has been made. Um, so I probably headed down to Dublin more in hope and expectation. And Saturday, there's a big Tyrone crowd there, by far the biggest Tyrone crowd of the year. Obviously hoping for one of those ear-defining wins over Kerry. And the first 15 minutes, it was all going fairly swimmingly. Tyrone are dominating midfield. Lexicon Kilpatrick and Brian Kennedy were punching the ball down. The other Tyrone players, and Tyrone were getting scores as well. Kieran Daly got 2 points in the first 50 minutes. O'Macalhome, who started, got a point. Tyrone were 5-2 up. And then it just all went a wee bit wrong for probably 3 or 4 reasons. David Clifford obviously started to have an impact. He scored a great 2 pointer, and Paddy Habsey had his hands full. And Malachy O'Rourke was obviously asked about it after the game. Why did this happen in a sense? Because I suppose Kerry had so many goal chances in particular, and he said the plan was that Peter Teague would hopefully do a job in Sean O'Shea, and he did. And Niall Devlin would hopefully do a job in Paddy Clifford, and he sort of did, and that would hopefully cut off the supply lines to David Clifford. But at the same time, I don't think there was enough cover at the back, and you had other lads there like Dylan Gainey and Graham O'Sullivan, probably inherited players who had a really good game, and Kerry just started to move through the gears. Clifford got a good goal. We nearly had another goal after that. Dale Morgan pulled off a really good save from Sean O'Shea, and even though they only led by 3 points at half time, felt like Tyrone were doing well just to be 3 points behind. The warning signs were there.
I suppose Nell says there was maybe 3 or 4 reasons why Kerry sort of pulled away, and one of them was obviously David Clifford. And this is something with the new rules that you can't double up really anymore. It's very hard to double up because we've seen Armagh, their tactic was to drop Ross McQuillan back in front of David Clifford, and you're leaving that space around the arc, and Johnny O'Shea took advantage of it. Tyrone went man to man with the likes of the Cliffords and Shawnee O'Shea, and once you're 1-on-1, David Clifford's just that's his bread and butter. And I was thinking of you, Mal, when he scored the goal, that Clifford bounce that you've referenced loads of times on the podcast, just gives him that extra second to round Morgan. And I mean, 1-9 in an Ireland semi-final is some going.
Look, it is surely, and like he made a rallying call to the Kerry fans, Sean, but he backed it up with two massive performances, and I suppose the team followed. Everybody else followed, but like you hit the nail on the head. Like the Ross McQuillan dropping back, you can understand what Armagh are trying to do, but it's just so difficult. And like interesting what Niall said there, what Malachy's quotes about trying to cut off the supply. Easier said than done, because I think the first couple of kick passes, one was Dylan Gainey down the wing, so it's really difficult to cut it all out. Like he was just exceptional, and I think the rest of Ireland are trying to work out how to work with David Clifford even back as far as minor level. He's just been, and Hogan Cup level, he's been exceptional. On the game itself, I would love to know how Tyrone would have fared. Like they were in a decent spot early on. Like as you said, Niall, they were able to like control the kickouts for a long spell. Like Darren McCrory had a goal chance saved, and then he missed by his own admission quite a decent point chance after that. You wonder at 5-1 would it have changed energy in Croke Park? And would it have just, as Niall touched on, like the Tyrone fans maybe would have just got another gear there? And you often hear people saying the teams feed off the crowd. You just wonder, or maybe it was just a case of it was going to be really, really difficult, as Armagh found out as well. And Donegal are obviously trying to get their teeth into it this week. They're really difficult to rein in, and there was a lot of question marks over them. But when it came to that third quarter and a couple of games, they really, really delivered, and it leaves them in some situation going into this final.
I suppose now that something that hurt Tyrone was that 20-minute period in the second half where they failed to score. They did have chances, along that Cusack side. I think the Petey Hart missed one, McKiernan missed one, McHugh maybe missed one. Like there was chances just to eat into that Kerry lead, but that 20 minutes without scoring just sort of killed them.
Yeah, in the first 5 minutes of the second half, they did reasonably well. Darragh Canavan kicked a couple of points, including a brilliant 2-pointer. Kerry got a couple of points down the other end, but Tyrone looked lively. But it was the same problem as in the first half. Kerry were just storming through them and getting goal chances. Joe O'Connor at one point burnt one of the Tyrone lads and blasted over the bar. There's another lad who, his name escapes me right now, but he probably should have had a goal as well. Tyrone were just so exposed at the back. Probably wasn't expected. I probably thought Tyrone would be a little bit better in defence, but then at the same time, you have to consider you're missing not just Michael McKiernan for most of the game. He obviously came on, but Rory Brennan as well. Rory Brennan, such an intelligent player at number 6 there. He came back this year and it's a good year, and he wasn't available. I didn't hear exactly why. He came off in the second half against Dublin, so maybe it was just after effects of that. So 2 starting defenders didn't play for Tyrone. Well, I know Michael came on the final 20 minutes, so maybe that's a bit of an excuse for why he didn't do so well in defence. But then, things just seemed to go horribly wrong there for 22 minutes spell. Tyrone had plenty of chances, but shot selection wasn't great. Mark Bradley went for a 2-pointer and it drifted wide. Michael McKiernan had a bit of a pop. There were shots from the flank, and maybe that's a testimony to the Kerry's defensive unit as well. It sort of clogged up the centre. But yeah, it's a bit of a conundrum. In the first half, Tyrone's kicking game didn't really work. A lot of kick passes went astray, and then Tyrone fans were sort of wondering after the game, why did we sort of put her about a bit in the second half? But then on the other hand, the kicking game didn't really work in the first half, so maybe it was just a change in tactics. But I think the wides, on top of everything else, I think they drain the life out of a team as well, and they encouraged all our team supporters, and it was just obvious for about 15 minutes ago that a comeback wasn't coming, and it just wasn't going to be thrown today. But there were some really good individual performances, particularly Colin Kilpatrick and Niall Morgan. Darragh Canavan had a really good game. We moved Jason Foley on to him in the final 20 minutes, and Jason possibly wrapped him up more so than Paul Murphy did anyway. And plenty to ponder from a Tyrone perspective. And I suppose the big question is, there's all these under-20s and minors coming through, and we throw a lot in those lads in the next 1 or 2 years,
Niall, see, when been in Croke Park, I thought another big moment in the game was, I think there were 7 points in it, and Rory Cannon had kicked a 2-pointer that was called back for the free.
Yeah.
And I remember Morgan, I think Niall Morgan, correct me if I'm wrong, he came up to take the free, and I remember thinking, if he can ding this and bring it back to 5 and they win the kick out, was the potential second chance for Tyrone. Was the breeze a factor in him not kicking that? I know only Niall can answer that, but was the breeze a factor possibly for them recycling? Because if they got it back to 5, could it have changed things?
Yeah, possibly. I suppose as a Tyrone man, I need to mention Joe McClellan as well. We weren't too happy with some of his decision making. I think the free count was 18 frees awarded to Kerry and 8 awarded to Tyrone, but I think there's also an acknowledgement that it didn't affect the final outcome. But yeah, I was a wee bit surprised that second instance you talked about, the through roughly in the 45-metre line, wasn't it, Mal?
Yeah.
Neil Morgan come up, and you're thinking
Take it back to 5 points. Take it back to 5 points, and
yeah, I mean, he certainly, whatever about the win, he certainly had the range.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't know if just the way the game had gone and maybe dealt with the team's confidence a little bit. So he decided to clip it across the Kieran McGarry. Kieran, he sort of half fumbled it, and the moment then passed. I think he had a bit of a go with it, but yeah, I was a wee bit surprised Niall didn't go for that. But at the end of the day, I don't think it was the winning or losing in the game either. I think Kerry were just better than Tyrone, and I think I suppose the only question I would have in my head coming out of that game is there anything we could have done to curtail David Clifford a bit more? Because he scored 1-9 out of 120. That's obviously more than 50% of Kerry's scores. And if we had found a way to do a job in Clifford, whatever about Kerry being better in the day, we still could have feasibly won, but it's a big if, and you're just wondering what could we have done differently. And I saw a message online saying, "Oh, we should have put maybe Peter Haig and David Clifford," but Paddy Hampsey's an all-star footballer. He's a brilliant fullback, and he's marked David multiple times before and generally done fairly well. So I don't think it was the individual marker that was the issue. I think it was probably just maybe a lack of cover more than anything else.
And maybe the Rory Brennan thing, the fact that he's not there just to sit.
Yeah, that didn't help either. Yeah, and I don't know at what stage they realised that Rory wasn't going to be able to play. I don't know if it could have been maybe just just a day or two before the game. But yeah, there was just Tyrone just weren't settled at all on defence, and it was hard watching on because it just seemed that Kerry were going to get a goal every time they attacked. And I expect it to be much different in the final. The Kerry may well win, but I can't see Kerry getting 6 or 7 chances.
And then just before we move on, we're going to hear from Malachy O'Rourke, but it's certainly not all doom and gloom in Tyrone. Like they're not going to win All-Ireland this year, but with the conveyor belt of talent coming through, they're going to be sitting at the top table for the next decade, you would imagine.
I hope so. I suppose at the start of the year, if someone had told you to get to an All-Ireland semi-final and taking the 6 points for Kerry, you probably would have taken it, because the last few years have been very disappointing. Like obviously we were knocked out by Roscommon in the preliminary quarter-final last year, So yeah, it was an interesting season. Some good days, some bad days. Obviously, there's 2 All-Ireland titles in the bag, so can't complain too much. And there's a couple of big days down in Croke Park, and I suppose Tyrone are probably just at a wee bit of a crossroads right now. But there's obviously a lot of experience there. I think there are 8 or 9 lads over the 30 mark, but I wouldn't go writing them off either. I still thought Matty Donnelly was one of our best players there at the weekend. Niall Morgan likewise. Darren McCurry had a couple of quiet games by his own standards in Croke Park, but he was actually really good the rest of the season, So I think it's easy to start, talking about retirements and things like that. But yeah, it'll be interesting to see how many of these under-20s make a mark. But it is a massive step up. I was chatting to a Kerry journalist down in the press room at the weekend, and he was making a comment, throwing her the next big thing, and it's just such a massive step up. Like if you look at, I'm not going too much about it. I know it's Donegal to talk about, but if you look at the 2022 team that won the All-Ireland under-20 title, 3 of those lads have nailed down starting positions. Sean O'Donnell, Kieran Daly, and Niall Devlin. Rory Canavan's a sort of steady sub, and that's pretty good actually to get 3 starting players out of that team. But I think I don't really buy into the theory that in the next, people talk as if Tyrone are going to be dominating the next couple of years. If Tyrone win 1 All-Ireland in the next decade, I'll be happy, Sean. Right? We'll take it from there.
Take it from there and see what happens. So we're going to hear from Malachy O'Rourke. We caught up with him after the game. We're going to hear from our sponsors, Hastings Hotels, as well, and then we'll be back to cover Donegal's win over Meath.
It was disappointing the way it got away from us. I suppose half time we felt we were right in the game. First half we played a lot of good football. We did well on both kickouts. I suppose the downside of that was we gave away a wee bit of possession cheaply through our own efforts unforced, and then Kerry put us under pressure times well. And then we were caught a wee bit at the back. Then we left ourselves a wee bit bare at the back, and obviously David Clifford, we didn't give Paddy enough cover at times, and David Clifford was in particular was very prominent in there. Having said that, at half time we were still right in the game. There was a wee bit of a breeze out there, and we had it in the second half. We knew if we tidied up and got our defence a wee bit more compact, we were right in the game. I think we got it back to a point, but then we just after that, I think when we got possession, we just weren't able to penetrate the Kerry defence. I suppose our shooting efficiency, but our shot selection at times wasn't great. And Kerry, on the other hand, were very good in possession. They could have had a few more goals, in fairness, and they didn't give away much ball, and they just were able to increase the lead. There's a lot of space in there. I suppose after the last day against Armagh, we felt that we wanted to try and nullify Paddy Clifford as best we could, and Sean O'Shea as well. We were hoping that we'd be able to do that, but be able to get back into a compact shape as well to make sure that the inside forwards, and particularly David Clifford, didn't get as much space he did. But when you give the ball away, you're obviously scrambling back, and it leaves that space. And then there was times as well that they were able to get through the pressing. That we maybe didn't get back quick enough to give Paddy that cover and to be more compact in defence. So it's a tricky balancing act, particularly with teams that have got a number of good forwards. So we did well in some areas, but there's no doubt that we didn't give enough cover to our full back line. In the first half, I know that we had a lot of good movement off the ball, and we were doing most harm when we were runners coming off the shoulder and getting through gaps and so on. It's possible that I think their defence seemed to be more compact in the second half, and the movement around the ball maybe wasn't as good, and that there wasn't as many gaps created, and we weren't able to get through those gaps. So there probably wasn't as many gaps there for us to sort of make incisive breaks into. And there's no doubt we were shooting from more difficult positions, and then we probably, our shot selection maybe wasn't as good as it could have been. But in fairness to Kerry, we're set up well, they're strong, they're an experienced defence, and they're able to hold us out, and we weren't able to score as freely as we were in the first, there's no doubt. Well, I take a lot of positives out of it, and that we've had a couple of really, a number of really good. We've had 4 championship victories, and we've went to Ballybofey and won. We've went to Croke Park and beat Dublin as well. So there has been, the boys have put in a lot of effort, and we have improved. To get into the last 4, you're going to be playing the top teams, and Kerry obviously are one of the top teams. So any weaknesses you have will be exposed more than in other games. So look, there's been a lot of positives, but at the same time, a game like that shows the level you have to get to if you want to be challenging for the top honours, and I suppose that's what we learned from today.
Experience hospitality the Northwest way at the Everglades Hotel. Located on the banks of the River Foyle, the Everglades Hotel is just minutes from the centre of Derry, London Derry, with free on-site guest car parking. Whether you're here for a family meal, a big celebration, or simply a peaceful retreat, we'll make your experience as memorable as the sights in the city. Visit Everglades Hotel Derry for accommodation bookings, the latest menus, live shows and events, and much, much more. See you there.
So on to the second semi-final then, and it was Donegal who saw off Meath in impressive fashion. And Mal, you were in Croke Park, and while plenty of people backed Donegal, I think everybody expected Donegal to win. I don't think anybody saw that margin of victory coming.
Definitely not, and I was off last week and was down in Donegal, sort of the Glenspilly area, for a couple of days, and just from chatting to a few people, that was exactly what they were saying. They were concerned the fact that Meath had beaten 3 big guns, in terms of Division 1 teams, and that there was definitely a warning there, but they also were sort of confident that they had turned the corner at half time, and that's the way it sort of panned out. You just wonder, was one of the biggest conversations in the Donegal camp about hitting the ground early, because they left themselves with an awful mountain against Monaghan. And even during the parade, and you get the sense that there's a massive Meath following, and you wonder, I forgot to ask the management this after, you just wonder, was there a case of we've got to keep their fans silenced, because if the cauldron builds up, it could change things. But to be fair, Billy Hogan made 2 exceptional saves, one from, I think it was Hugh McFadden. I don't know how he saved it. That sort of kept Meath in the game. But at the same time, Sean, at the other end, like Patrick McBeardy did win the toss and elected to play against the breeze, and you wonder, did Meath try too many pot shots for 2-pointers? And if they had went in maybe level at half time, does it change the mentality and the energy in the dressing room? Because they definitely, they just lack composure. Like Shane O'Donnell took a pot shot off balance one time, and that was once off. Meath are doing that continuously during the first half, and like Niall touched on it from the Tyrone game, how it sucks away the energy. And some of Meath's bigger guns were pulling those shots wide, and it just seemed to change the whole dynamic of the game. And as I say, Billy Hogan's more or less kept them in it. And like early on, like Meath had won a couple of Sean Patton's kickouts, albeit they had the help of the breeze, but they weren't able to punish. And I suppose Donegal were just, like the scoreline says it all, like we're just deserving winners in every way. And at 5 points up at halftime, they're in a really, really good spot. That was the general feeling, you know yourself around the press area at halftime. People are chatting about how things are going, and that was the general feeling. That it was going to take a big performance from Meath. And the thing about it was, Meath maybe targeted the third quarter. They maybe thought this is Donegal's spell where they put teams away, a wee bit like Kerry have done with Tyrone and Armagh. But the problem was they were 5 points down, and then that's very difficult to turn around. And like Oisin Gallen's goal, it was probably Shinné at that point. That was the end of the story, I felt. There was obviously a couple more goals, but you just got the sense that there was a hammer blow there. And when you see Michael Murphy being replaced after 46, 47 minutes, it's nearly a sign that, well, we're going to try and rest as many people as possible in this heat, because we think the deal's done, and it was.
It's funny, Mal, as soon as Murphy comes off, the game's done, don't you?
I felt that.
The last couple of games live and Monaghan as well, you just knew the game was over once he come off.
You wonder what the Meath players think at that stage. Are they thinking, we're gone here? Because likewise, whenever you bring somebody like that on, or a Soupy Campbell on, or even like Peter Canavan that time in 2003 when he was come back off the bench, there's that real buzz, and interesting, that's the other side of it. But not Donegal were just, they were just so ruthless in everything that they did. Like Conor O'Donnell would have been a man they missed a lot last year. Like I think he scored 333, and all but one of it's from play. I think Oisin Gallen's down to like 4th or 5th top scorer, and he's an all-star. I think they've got a lot of balance. And then you've got the likes of Finbar O'Rourke, who seems to be playing as if he's been playing for about 10 years. And looks like a man who's about 10 years older, but they just have so many things going for them, and it all came together. But at the same time, there was people talking after the game about statement wins and 20-point margins and all that sort of stuff. To me, I think that's sort of irrelevant, because they'll know that they saw what Kerry did to both Armagh and Tyrone, and they were sort of thinking, well, Armagh and Tyrone are the teams that Donegal had struggled with. They couldn't beat them over 70 minutes. So that would be the concern there, because their eyes would have been on trying to win Sam, definitely. And I suppose it's a mentality game now, and it's trying to do what the rest of the world are trying to do, is to try and find the balance between cutting the supply to David Clifford and cutting the space. So maybe the Donegal camp will be stuck into the video work already, I would imagine, and they'll be trying to see, well, what could Armagh not do and what could Tyrone not do, and they maybe have a better chance, based on those two performances, to maybe get their house in order.
And Mal spoke about those Meath wides in the first half and sort of maybe sucking the energy out of their fans. Like, you could feel that even sitting at home watching it. Like, every time the ball went wide, I think they had 9 wides in the first half, and then Donegal would maybe come up the field and they would get a 1 point, and it just felt that if Meath were going to have a chance, they were going to have to be level or a lot closer come half time.
Yeah, well, I think they probably overachieved in a sense to get to All-Ireland semi-final in the first place. They were up in Division 2 this year. I was at the Leinster final and wasn't overly impressed by them, but fair play to them for getting this point. And maybe it says something about where Galway were at this year, that they beat Galway in All-Ireland quarter-finals. So I know it was a hell of a drubbing to take in All-Ireland semi-final, but there's still a lot of positives there in terms of the actual progress they've made under Robbie Brennan. Yeah, I suppose there was an air of inevitability about it by half time. Donegal were starting to. They were very efficient in attack. It seemed like every time they went up, they were carving out a decent scoring opportunity. Nothing overly spectacular, just working the ball into the right area and taking their points. And second half is obviously a bit of a procession. And Donegal, they're fit as fiddles. They're very efficient. The running game's hard to stop. And I suppose people have talked a wee bit about whether the running game would hold up, in Croke Park and sunny days like that, and it certainly did. There was no issues there. In the great place heading into the final, the squad's fit and healthy. With one or two wee knocks, there was a bit of debate about Michael Murphy going off. If they have picked up a knock because he looked a wee bit unsteady when he took a shot before he went off. So Jim McGuinness says he's fine. But we'll see. I think I'd say he'll be 100% to start in a couple of weeks' time anyway. But they're in a great position. Everyone's fit and ready, and I suppose it is parallels with 2012 in the sense it's the second year Jim McGuinness's tenure, and they're in a great spot.
I think Mal, to win All Ireland, Kerry's going to have to end their Ulster hoodoo completely. They've already beaten Armagh, Tyrone, and now Donegal stand in their way. It's been a big thing labelled at Kerry down through the years that they maybe don't fare as well against Ulster teams, but it'll be the ultimate All Ireland win for them if they can beat three Ulster teams.
It will be, because like Armagh had beaten them last year, and it's well documented that Tyrone had their number in the noughties as well, and obviously in 21 as well. But I think it would be, because a lot's thrown at them that they have an easy run on Munster and they maybe had a favourable draw in the group stages and that type of thing. But I think it's definitely something that Kerry will. They might say it's not in their heads, but it has to be. And maybe it's something, the way these teams always need to have an angle. They always need to have some sort of a hook to build it up. So maybe that's what Jack and the guys will be doing this week and towards the weekend, to try and get inside the heads to try and fire them up. But at the same time, they're facing a team who won by 20 points and who are Ulster champions and who were very close last year. So they'll know what's coming in the point of view from Donegal. From Donegal's side of things, with all those ways in the first half, I think they went something like, I'm not exactly sure the time, it's something like 11 or 12 minutes without a score. And Michael Langan sort of kicked the point. That was actually between his 2 points where they hadn't got anything to show for it. And they weren't overly convincing at that point. I remember looking up at the scoreboard and thinking, this is going to be a bit of a slog here for Donegal. So that's one side of it they'll be looking at. But like as Niall was saying, there's a bit we were saying too, it's a bit of a procession in the second half. But one thing that sort of stood out for me among it all, and it's difficult to watch the match too deeply when it's so one-sided, but Dara Boyle came off on one time and he had the chance to shoot, and it wasn't an overly brilliant chance, but Paddy McBrearty was inside him, and Dara Boyle was probably Player of the Year conversation at a stage during the league. Obviously, doesn't count for much, but he passed it to McBrearty for a shot. Oisin Gallen had been struggling for a wee bit of form. He had scored 1-2. He had a chance to tag on another score. What does he do? He passes the ball across to Conor O'Donnell. What a pass. What a pass. But there's that unselfish thing about it, and they've got 12 different scores yesterday again, whereas Kerry, a lot of their scores comes through the top 4 or 5 players. Donegal's a wee bit more spread out like that. So that'll be the plus side of it. And as I say, the negative side will just be the way they stuttered in that first half. And maybe if Jim did touch on it, Donegal they only sort of defend 2/3 of the pitch. They always seem to leave the other wing sort of vacant. And Meath seemed to find a pocket there, but they started to shuffle across and started to defend a wee bit wider. I thought that's what it looked like from high up. So that's something that's definitely going to be a factor. And I'll go back to the point of Rory Brennan. You can talk all you want about Paddy Hampsey. I think Rory Brennan's absence was huge in the way Tyrone went about it. So that's something that does that. I probably sound like a broken record at that point, but is it a stage where Jim's going to say, right, somebody's going to have to be dropped for this final because we need Ciaran McGonigal to do that job that Rory Brennan could have potentially done. That's maybe where the conversation is, and Peter McGuinness played every game last year. But when it came to the final, it was horses for courses. Was it Conor Mackin came in to do a job on a bigger man? But Peter McGuinness still has his All-Ireland medal. So whoever could potentially lose out to Ciaran McGonigal, if Donegal won the All-Ireland, it's all about the team. But that's the one thing I'll look forward to this week, to see what they actually do. But again, it's great to be talking about it. And as much as both semi-finals ended up convincing in the end, it maybe sets it up for a humdinger of a final, hopefully.
Yeah, it should be a brilliant final, and we'll be starting our build up to it now probably, and we'll be looking ahead to what a game it should be. We're going to hear from Jim McGuinness and Ryan McHugh now. Mal spoke to the pair of them after the game, so we're going to hear from them, and that's all for today's show. We'll be back on Thursday, and we'll continue our build up to the All-Ireland final. So Mal, Niall, chat to you soon.
Thanks, Sean.
Oh, definitely, Michael. It was a long road back, to be honest with you, a hell of a long road back. But no, delighted to get over the line and obviously go one step further than last year. Listen, they had trained well. We knew we had trained well. I suppose we're out covering old ground again. The difference between a 1 week turnaround and a 2 week turnaround really is probably you're going to get one session done in a 1 week turnaround, and I would say with a 2 week turnaround you're looking at 5 or 6. That's massive from a coaching point of view. Trying to get the information pulled together, but to get out on the pitch and repeatedly work on the things that you feel would be important in the game, that's huge. So we got that. We got that opportunity to work on things and then come away from that and then make some tweaks and do that again, and you're building that over 4 or 5. So we spoke about it as coaches in the hotel this morning, that it feels like there is a performance in them, because a lot of the things that we were looking to achieve in the game, there was a consistency in our training. So that's brilliant, and obviously we get another 2 weeks now into the final, and hopefully we can go down the same road. Meath carried the 2-point threat all the time, and there was a really hot spot there on the right-hand side of the arc that they were hitting hard in the first half, and obviously we had to make a bit of an adjustment there. Their switches of play are something that they're very, very good at, and then they tried to get players in an overload situation on the weak side, and that area of the pitch today on the right-hand side of the arc, the wind was just bringing the ball in that area, so it didn't take a huge amount to get a 2 over the bar from that pocket. So yeah, we had to make a wee bit of an adjustment there, and once we did that, we were able then to sort of control the game a wee bit more defensively. But control the game defensively is not a term that's being used very often nowadays, but certainly I thought the boys done a good job whenever we made that adjustment. Meath have a lot of big men. And obviously, you have to take that on. We've a lot of big men ourselves, and we have them all on the pitch. So yeah, listen, kickouts have become absolutely huge. Trying to retain your own kickout. Meath got a very good squeeze on us on the first half. I know we were playing against the breeze, but certainly they did get a really good squeeze on us. We were able to do really well on their kickout even towards the end of the first half, and then obviously they were playing against the breeze in the second half. It made it a bit easier. That threat of out over the top doesn't exist to the same level, So yeah, it's a huge part of the game, and then once you get hands on the ball, you can sort of start to implement your own game plan from a possession point of view.
Ryan, how satisfying is it to be back in the biggest game of the year?
Yeah, listen, it's unbelievable. It's a little cliche, but that's what we came up to do today, was to get over the line, just what Colin Keys walking past me 11 years later, so it's been a long time. I was a kid in 2014. You think them times you're going to get to semi-finals and finals every year, but so it's been a long time, but it's great to be back, but we have to make the most of it now, hopefully.
It won't count for much on final day, but as of today, big performance, wide range of scores, like Farah played a pass for Conor O'Donnell for a goal, Darrell Wheel passed up a shot to make a point for Patrick, so there was a lot of balance there today. Yeah,
there was. I'd have to watch it back again, but off the top of my head, I think we had a lot of boys got in the score sheet. I think we put up, was it 323 or so, so it was a big score. 326 was in the end, so big scoring, so it is. But again, as you touch on, not going to matter much in the final, but we'll just have to go and do it again, so it is, so the new rules I think suit teams to put up big scores to do and stuff like that, so we're just trying our best to be as good as we can on every day in terms of attacking and defending.
I remember watching you got off in the semi-final against Monaghan. I think it was 7 or 8 down at half time.
Yeah.
How conscious of were you today not to find yourself in that situation?
Listen, you never want to find yourself in that situation, so you don't.
Tricky.
It was, listen, and it didn't look good, so it didn't call the spade a spade. When we in the quarter-final we ran off at half time, I think it was 7 points, but Rory's Beggin's 2-pointer put them 7 points up, so no, it didn't look good, and Monaghan looked in the driving seat, but thankfully we regrouped that match, and I think by the 50-minute mark we might have been level, so it was a real big 15 minutes we put in the start of the second half. But you never want to be in that situation. Unfortunately, we found ourselves in the situation, but I think, to be fair to this team, over the last 2 years, when we have found ourselves in them situation, we've dug deep. Galway game maybe in the semi-final last year, the one that maybe stands out that we didn't, but thankfully today we didn't put ourselves in that, and we went in at half time 5 points up, and we thought we were in a good position, but we knew Meath were going to come out, and they did. They got the first point of the second half, but thankfully we got to grips with the game then, and I think we've seen it out brilliantly.
Final point for me, Ryan. How satisfying is it to play in a team that consistently gets 10, 11, 12 different scores? As a footballer, how satisfying is that?
It's great, but I think that's the modern game. So it is, and I think every team has to be fit to do that if they're going to win big games, in Croke Park especially. You need threats coming from everywhere, and thankfully we have that at the minute, from our full back line to our full forward line. Everyone's fit to score, and I think we've shown that all year. But again, it's going to be none unless we do it on the final day.
Thanks for your time.
Thank you, no bother at all.